That was a little loud. You wait back there, Chris? How's that? Y'all are kind of scattered out. Okay, so my name's Tommy Thomas. I'm the branch chief for Human Resources membership inquiries for the 8th District, 8th Eastern, 8th Western, 8th Coastal. So every inquiry that comes to me from that district goes out to the staff officers in those 3 districts. There are many of them, about 35 or 40, and then they float that information to the flotilla. So one of the feedbacks that we got, Anita was just here, is that a lot of these people aren't staying in the program. So she asked me to put together something just kind of this morning and today about mentoring, orientation, and passports. My goal is for you to leave here saying, that's really something that I can use. Because I may be the best instructor that you've ever had, and you may go, oh gosh, I can't wait to sit in these seats again and just 6 hours of Tommy hammering in on me, but I doubt it. Okay? So hopefully the information that we give you is going to be a benefit to you and your flotilla. Questions. Anytime you've got a question, raise your hand. We want to go through that. I've counted on a lot of time for answers, interactions. Anita sent me this last week. She said, according to her, 61 disenrollments in the last quarter of 2022. 61. I think she told me there were 880-something people. Isn't that about right? 880. And we lost 61, so that's not terribly bad. But 18 have been in less than 2 years. In the last 5 years, 120. Now we're down to 888. I know in our flotilla, we lost some that were, I'm going to use the word unproductive. They were just there because they'd always been there. Some of them were waiting for their 15 years. Some of them had been in for 30 years, and they just wanted to keep paying their dues, but they weren't terribly productive. So, I want to tell you a quick story. No, I don't tell a lot of stories. I don't tell any jokes because I always offend somebody in somewhere. But my wife and I loved fly fish. So we were going to Branson, Missouri, and I said, we're going to get us a fly fishing trip. So we called the outfitter, really great. Went out there on the lake, on the river, caught our limit, 2 or 3 hours, came back, went back to the hotel, fried up the fish, had a great time. Next year we went to Breckenridge and called the outfitter out there, and I said, hey, we're coming to Breckenridge, want to go fly fishing. He said, that's great, come on out there. I said, I don't have anything because I'm flying. I'm not going to bring all my stuff. He said, we got everything you need. So when we got there, about 6 days before the fly fishing trip, I called him up and I said, we're here, ready to go. We got a day trip planned, so, about halfway through, we'd like to stop and cook our trout and have a wonderful, luncheon on the riverbank. And the lady, I talked to the lady, and she said, oh, Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry, but we're a catch and release state. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you catch all the trout you want, but you have to turn them back into the river. I said, man, I'm from Tennessee. We're a catch and eat state, okay? And so that reminded me, in this organization, we sometimes are catch and release people. We catch a lot of people coming in, and then for some reason, they don't stay. And we release them back into the populations. I want to show you something real quick. In my position as a branch chief, when those people make a call or come online, every one of those pieces of paper is the name of an individual who wanted to join the auxiliary. This is my 2023 folder. 2023. So that's about January, February, March, April. 45, 48 people a month I talk to or try to talk to and get them out. And we want to become a catch and hold place. We want them to stay here. So how do we do that? Well, one of the things we're going to talk about this morning is mentoring. If I can find my clicker. There it is. And I've given you kind of a question sheet. The answers are up here, or going to be up here. So when we talk about mentoring, it's the framework of this program, what's available for successful implementation. What is a mentoring program going to do? So for the next, supposedly 2 hours, if you're opposed to getting out early, this may not be the place for you. But that's me. So what I want to know is to find out who you are, because I don't know most of you. I want to know where you're from, what's your auxiliary experience, and how do you think you might use this information? Because somebody always told me that knowledge is power. Well, that is wrong. Knowledge is just knowledge. The ability to use that knowledge, that's where the power comes from. So we want you to be able to not only get some information, but be able to use that information so you can have some power in keeping these people in the auxiliary. So we'll start with you, sir.
I'm Roger Kramer. I'm with 6-8 up in Indian Lake. I joined right before COVID hit. The gentleman that...
And stayed.
Yeah. The gentleman I was trying to get through all the classes, he gave me a paper and said, these are the links. And I tried getting in. Didn't work. I couldn't meet with him to go through any of it. So after we had some more people joined, I decided I was going to start sitting down with each individual and going through all the websites and everything with them. And we found out that we actually retained a lot more people because they actually had somebody that's been through the process and knows what a pain in the butt it is to try and get through so many.
And that was no surprise to you, was it?
No, because I know I was frustrated, and I thought, I'm going to relieve their frustration a little bit by helping them get through this process.
You see my slides? You haven't seen my slide presentation.
I have not, but I was really interested in mentoring because I used to do it on the civilian side. So I want to bring that experience into the auxiliary.
Remind me again, what's your first name?
Roger.
Roger. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, ma'am. Go by. Low. 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 Whichever one he's in, you're in.
There's Joe and Lo. So.
Low is in 6'2". Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Don Clark. I'm
Don.
Don. Yeah, and I'm also a new member. I'm doing this for two reasons. One, to get more for my own experience in working forward, but also to help others who are going to come in that do get frustrated. Because I sometimes frustrate myself.
No. Say it ain't so, Don. Okay.
I came through from the C-ship side of it, Boy Scout C-ship side.
Good.
I was involved with them, and one of our skipper for the C-ship is also
Fantastic. Roger, do me a favor. Would you take that sheet back to the Commodore back there? It just came in. He'll be on time next time. Well, I just gonna. We were talking about. I noticed you got a Vietnam service ribbon. Thank you for your time over there. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're glad for those of us. Yes, sir.
Mike Miller. I'm from the Knoxville area. I've been from vice field commander, division commander, vice division commander, and now group captain south. I've been about 7 years, I guess. And how am I going to use this information? One of the greatest challenges we face in the auxiliary is membership. Especially after COVID. And the second greatest problem we face is getting that membership engaged nothing and go away. So we got to fight both those problems. And so what I hope to use this information for is to translate.
Thank you, sir.
Community commanders and patrol commanders that I work with and still work with to solve this problem of getting members in, keeping them engaged, and getting to the things. You know, we typically complain, oh, there's too much stuff to do. We got to do all these things. All this, and that's what makes them go away. That's not what makes them go away. We have a lot of stuff to do. What makes them go away is our attitude, I think, towards all the stuff we got to do. So as leaders, we have to make sure that we convey, yeah, we're the government, and every government plays in it. Yeah, it's things, but oh, that's dealing with fun stuff. So we have to be able to keep the member engaged, get them through. Like everyone said last night, starts a heroic journey. The first one
Yep.
is Mount paperwork. So you do that, get past it, and then we do our stuff. So I want to get people in. I want to keep them engaged. I want to make whatever your dream is to be an auxiliarist, I want to make sure we can make it happen.
If you think he has passion for his job, raise your hand. Okay? We need that passion. I talk every day to the staff officers in HR all across this whole 8th district, eastern, western, coastal, and I don't sometimes hear the passion for the job. And you have to have people in the position that are passionate. So we've got people that want to do mentoring. You understand the mentoring, how important it is. So let's see. I'm going to start with the who, what, where, why, and when, and how. That's kind of the way that I go through the scientific looking at things. So the what? What is mentoring? It's a question on your sheet, right? What do you think mentoring is?
It's talking to folks and helping them work through their problems.
Okay, so you said the first thing that's important is talking to people. I'm going to use this little thing out here. So going back to my job, because it's one that I actually love, when you're talking to people, you have to actually sending them an email, sending them a text. So let's say this one that's important is to talk. Get some information. So mentoring is talking to people. Roger, you got this down, man. I'm going to have to hire you.
Well, the next one I put in there too is to listen.
Probably more than important. If you can get someone talking to you, listen to what they have to say. Do you know how hard that is for some people? Yes, sir.
Okay, so
I thought you were just looking. I didn't know you were I thought you were just looking. Didn't you tell me I'm just looking?
this will make sense.
No, I want to hear this.
Okay, so when you start taking leadership courses, I'm hoping you all will do, and this will be looking at, you will be asked to have 2 or 3 or 4 pro words, which is your watchwords. Okay? So, like I said, I started out in HR as an FSO. My watchwords: communicate, participate, inspire. What's the positive attitude?
I'm going to go ahead and put that down. Communicate, participate, and inquire. Inspire.
With a positive attitude.
Pardon my handwriting.
How much damage can you do if you do all those 3 and you're mad at your work? You could kill the organization. So if you communicate to people, you can get them to participate. If they participate, they can go inspire other people, which makes them communicators also. So it's a circle. The other side of that coin too is if you're communicating with somebody and not coming away with that inspired feeling, then that's going to rub off on people too. You're going to have that negative aspect come out.
Is every person who wants to join the auxiliary a good prospect as a flotilla member? Now think about that question. Is every person who wants to join the auxiliary a good prospect? Will they be beneficial to that flotilla? What do you think? Why not? Attitude. It's their attitude. So again, back to my job, which I do every day for a couple of hours, talking to people, I want to get their attitude. Why do you want to join? What do you want to do this? So let's get back to the mentoring program for a second. I've got your thoughts, okay? Many cases, it's just sharing of experience. Wouldn't you agree? You got the experience, Roger, of going through how hard it was, and now you're willing, you just told us, you were willing to share that experience with somebody else. There's a guy in leadership class that's our detachment leader in Pickwick down on the Tennessee River, and he went through the same thing trying to get logged into Oxdata. And so we mentored him, he worked it out, and he said, I got it. I said, well, now that you got it, hold on to it, because every new member, I'm going to send them to you, and you're going to mentor them in how to get into Oxdata. Okay, so they're going to share experience. It allows the auxiliaries to be guided through the learning process by a qualified mentor. Okay, we're going to go through mentor characteristics a little bit later on, but you need a qualified mentor to take these people through the process. It's an attempt to improve knowledge and skills. They come in, maybe they have a lot of knowledge from, let's say, the Coast Guard. We heard yesterday bringing a lot of active Coast Guard in. They know what they're doing, but guess what? They don't know how to do it the Coast Guard auxiliary way, right? So is there a little bit of a relearning? And sometimes they have to unlearn some things that they might have learned in order for us to bring them up to speed doing it the Coast Guard way. I'm a 50-ton master Coast Guard captain. Been on boats and big boats and love them. Don't have one anymore, but there you go. So I have to do it the Coast Guard way. Just because I'm a Coast Guard captain, 100-ton, doesn't mean I can be boat crew right away or coxswain right away because I don't know how to do it the auxiliary way. So we want to improve this knowledge and skills and do it our way. Learn by experience rather than failure. We all know, I've raised 4 children. They have an option. They can learn from their mistakes or they can learn from my mistakes, okay? If they'll listen to me, 3 did, 1, I can save them a lot of grief, a lot of trouble. But then I get that, Daddy, I want to do it my way. Okay, here's your helmet, go for it. So, we want to learn by experience rather than from failure. So why? Why is mentoring important? You said, Roger, I'm going to be a mentor now. Why was that important to you? So, relieve frustrations. O-O-N.
So during that time, it was also I made a presentation of showing the different missions within the auxiliary.
Okay.
And then I was able to gauge what they were going to want to do. So the other mentor, he's really into communication and license and stuff. So I was like, if you want to go that path, I think Chris would probably be a better mentor for you than me because I want to do it.
You did read my presentation, didn't you?
I must have. I think maybe I
Or maybe it's just common sense. Would y'all agree with the no frustrations? He mentioned finding out what they're interested in. That's their hot button. I believe, because I came up through the fraternity system at the University of Tennessee, and I realized that everybody has a hot button. There's something they want. In the auxiliary, there's something that they've gone through. By the time they get to me, they've read a lot of stuff. I want to join your auxiliary. What do you want to do? What's your hot button? And if you listen, they'll tell you what it is. I want to be on boat crew. Well, I'm not boat crew qualified, so would I be a good mentor? No. So I have to kind of figure out what their hot button is. What's going to make them happy in the auxiliary? Dr. Gary Padgett joined our flotilla last year. He is a professor, PhD, at the University of North Alabama. Immediately, the flotilla commander said, aha, VSO-PE, right? He said, I do that all day. I want to do something else. So before he even found out what the hot button was, he was trying to pigeonhole him into something that, is he qualified to do that? Of course he is. But is that his hot button? No. So we don't want to make those kinds of assumptions. So let's run through a couple of reasons why mentoring might be important to you. It's a dynamic approach, and we'll talk about dynamic and static in a minute. more effective and more efficient way to increase the knowledge and skills of auxiliaries? So the answer to the question is, it is more effective and more efficient in its ability to increase the knowledge and skills of the auxiliaries. That's why mentoring is so important. Yes, sir.
The dynamic has to be two ways, not just one. I've kind of read situations where there actually is somebody from the auxiliary side that reaches out all the time to a key person and nothing.
No response.
No response. It's extremely frustrating. So I challenge you, when you're auxiliary journey, when you reach out to, respond. And do not being reached out to, respond again. They can do what you need. And they will. I think they will. But everybody gets busy. I don't know what the reasons are.
Yep.
But it is truly a problem. In order for us to make your auxiliary dream happen, you have to communicate your dream.
We're being broadcast. So it's up here, not down here. Right?
For us to make your auxiliary dream happen, you have to communicate what that is to us, and then we need to help you do that. If you don't do that other thing, then, describe what's going to happen, but we're going to put you where we need to.
And we're going to go over this afternoon the passport document, which is essential. You want me to hang on this? Okay. Well, I'll give you a job. You hand it to the person that wants to talk. You got to do something around here. Just sit here and look pretty. But you're exactly right, which brings up the next static learning person might learn on their own. One person on their own, like we send them off to core training videos and BCQ type training videos by themselves. That's a static learning process. But we want a dynamic learning process that's more interpersonal. It's more getting to know the person, finding out their hot button, talking and listening at the same time. More experienced person offering guidance and support to a less experienced person. For example, you can't tell somebody, do boat crew training. How many of you have seen the boat crew training manual? It's about that thick. I've got one up in my room, actually. And I think, Oh, wonderful. Now we are a manual organization, but I'm not going to go there. So boat crew training and vessel exam training, you can't just say, take the vessel exam course and then go forth and examine vessels. I mean, we got paddlecraft, we've got pontoon boats, we've got bass boats, we've got large 65 marquees. I mean, we do a lot of vessel exams on very big boats, and you have to have hands-on training, and you can't just do a couple and think you got it. Okay, so it's an ongoing process of mentoring. So it's a dynamic learning process. Two people. So the who, well, we're going through this quickly. Who's going to be our mentor? Anybody. Okay, that we got a qualification to the anybody that's qualified, somebody that knows what they're doing. So they have to have some knowledge, right? However, so age and experience in the auxiliary is not as important as knowing what you're talking about. Really knowing what you're talking about. Okay? So experience may or may not be the key. Age may or not be the key. What else besides knowledge do you need as a mentor? Or who's going to be the mentor? And we're getting into some characteristics right now. Let's see what we can. It's going to depend on the talent. Roger Kramer just went through an ordeal, frustration. He's one of the ideal people within the organization. Do you mentor people? You're at the district level, right? DCAP, another DCAP, Ron's a DCAP, past Commodore. I mean, are you mentoring people on a daily basis? Sure you are. Well, we're all mentoring people. I'm, in a sense, kind of mentoring you a little bit here, okay? Going through the process. So it depends on the available talent. It also depends on the compatibility of mentor and mentee. I have been mentored by some people that I wish weren't mentors. Have you had that experience? For some reason, we don't, as my grandfather, who was the mule farmer would say, mule trader, we didn't jihad, okay? We didn't work together as a team. And so that's terribly important. So the characteristics of a mentor. We don't cut corners in this organization, but to our peril. Now, having said that, I can't lie to you and tell you that I've never cut a corner when it absolutely had to be done or felt good. Anybody else want to raise their hand and say, yeah, on occasion, I'll take a shortcut, you know. But when you're mentoring somebody, we have to have people of integrity. I don't want to show them the fastest, easiest, quickest way to get there. I want to show them the way that they can get there and actually accumulate the knowledge that they need to accumulate. My past flotilla commander, Keith Ridgway, is teaching Oxweather today. And it's a 40-hour course, I think. You know, it's long. It's really long. One of the hardest ones that I went through. So he's trying to condense that into 8 hours today. And my gosh, his biggest concern at breakfast was, I'm not going to give them everything they need. I can't do it. I have to leave something out. And so his integrity kind of comes through. He wants it to be a good process. So having integrity, they have to have time to devote to the task. So it's terribly important that your mentor understand this isn't a one-off thing. You just don't go in and sit down with them and say, hey, here's the information. Go out and find it. I've got war stories that bring people that are here in. The commander, the HR guy, just sent them a link to the application, said, here, fill this out and come back when you're done. Yeah? I'm an FSO HR. That doesn't work. I mean, they look at that thing, and if they can get it up and if they can get it started, and I don't know if you've tried to do it lately, but if you've tried to print out or try to get a 7001 alpha off in the correct manner, it doesn't happen. You have to sit down with them sometimes. So you have to have time to devote to the task. It's one of the critical characteristics. That important? Talk and listen. They'll tell you what's going wrong. They'll tell you where you need to improve. They will give you all kinds of information if you'll just shut up and listen to what they have to say to you. Because you're not the end-all, know-all to everything that's out there. Ron? Oh, can I call you Ron or DCAP? Good for him.
And we talked about the auxiliary, about his involvement, and all I did was just listen, ask a couple questions, and listen again, and give him some advice at the end of it. So I think it's asking questions also, because what you want to do is find out what their concerns are.
And where they need to go.
Yes.
So communication skills are important. And not everybody has them. Not everybody feels comfortable using them. But we can mentor people into having better communication skills, can we not? And that's something that we can do within our organization. They have to have motivational skills. Sometimes it's like herding cats. Okay, let's be honest. You got to kind of move them along, a little cattle prod here and there, something to get them motivated to complete the task. And what motivates them to complete the task is their hot button. It's that thing that says, I want to accomplish this. This is what I want to do. And so you need to say, okay, if you want to do this, here's how we get going. Here's how we get going. Let me interrupt and apologize. You came in and I'm sorry, we don't know who you are and where you're from. Would you let us know?
I'm Sally Nummer, Paul
That's okay. I used to go to Green Turtle Bay all the time in my boat, so I'm familiar with that. And you're actually come down to just into my territory because I'm right at Pickwick Dam, and I know. So you're right there, boats on the water. We appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Okay, she came late.
Late's kind of an arbitrary term. Decap, you want to tell us who you are? Chief of Staff. What's your hot button? Oh, that's we're really bad about TLAs and FLAs, 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter acronyms. So I encourage one of the first things I do. We're going to talk about it during the orientation. We're going to talk about the acronyms and where that fits in. Because if you don't know what we're talking about, and everybody's guilty of it, aren't you? I mean, you're sitting there, and here we go. RBS is job number 1. Question: what's RBS? That's a good, honest question. And we need to understand that as mentors, that we're coming at this from a whole different perspective than some of these other people are. They've got very little knowledge about the auxiliary and how we operate and what we do and everything about us. And we're trying to assimilate them into a new organization. And that mentoring, orientation, and then this afternoon after lunch, the passport process, which is tracking them, is so key to what we need to do and keep them involved. So do you think that they're going to need some patience? If you haven't been a mentor before, it's frustrating sometimes. You're going to meet. You're going to meet at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're going to sit down. You're going to go over something, and somebody doesn't show up. You go, take off my time, and you're just frustrated, but it's patience. Okay, well, 2 o'clock today didn't work. What time's good for you? You know the drill. Okay, so we have to have patience. And as we talked before, the number one thing, we have to know what we're talking about. As I was going through preparing these presentations, I was pulling stuff off the internet, and I found there's some stuff out there that's just wrong. And it's been there forever, and nobody's ever taken it down. So I'm real quick to go to the webmaster and go, this is right. Fix this. Admiral Zimmerman, he's a 2-star, I think, is in charge of HR. And so I sent him a note, and he spread it out to somebody else. Let's look at this because it doesn't appear to be right. You got to say something. See something, say something. So we have to know what we're talking about. So the characteristics of a mentor. I would suggest that you take these characteristics to heart. And as you go back to your flotilla, as you're trying to use this mentoring concept, identify people in your flotilla that have these characteristics. And just said, my flotilla's got 30 people. And so I know that there are 12 of them that won't meet all these characteristics. See, they don't know what they're doing. They have no patience whatsoever. They don't meet this criteria. But there are 18 of them that I think probably would meet all of these in a high level. So those are the people that I can work on to be mentors in some other area. And then I need to find out, do they want to mentor? And then what might they become a good mentor for? So what's the member going to be gained by being a mentor? Now I'm talking about the member who's already there, the potential mentor. What are they going to gain? What's in it for me? That's that radio station that everybody listens to. WIIFM. What's in it for me? Whiff'em. What's in it for me?
Is we have people coming up willing to do the volunteer task and willing to take on the leadership roles. So by mentoring someone to get to that level so they can become a mentor and a leader and a volunteer hour giver, that's how the organization survives.
So what's in it for you?
Satisfaction knowing that I'm perpetuating the organization, and if these guys are willing to do stuff, I don't have to do as much.
Once again, using my grandfather as an example, the more mules you have pulling the wagon, the lighter the load on each mule. Okay, so that's terribly important that we have more people doing the work. What else? What are you going to gain by being a mentor?
But after talking with him, I got enthusiastic and became a TCO. So now I run the radio watches at our stations.
So you kind of, as a mentor, you're building your skills.
Exactly.
So you're improving as an auxiliarist, right?
Yes.
What else? What do you think the member's going to? Yes, ma'am. Low.
Yes, sir. I think one of the things as you get longer and longer in the auxiliary, somebody mentioned earlier about how the rules change and regulations change and stuff. If you're a mentor teaching a new person, you have to stay up on that stuff, so it kind of keeps you current.
So as Stephen Covey would say, you're sharpening your saw, right? That's what you got to do. What else? So you're keeping up. Well, same thing. It's kind of like improving. Where'd my clicker go? Here it is. Enthusiasm. I swear, y'all must have read these slides. But it's common sense. There's no epiphany here. We're not opening up the sky and information is banging down on us here in this classroom. This is common sense. It's stuff that we all should know, probably know. Maybe it's in the back of our heads. So enthusiasm. Understand the barriers experienced by new members. Okay, so Roger says, God, that was so frustrating. And as a mentor, you see that frustration, you feel that frustration, and it renews your ability to understand what they're going through. Because it's one thing to be sympathetic, something entirely different to be empathetic. Okay, if you're sympathetic, you go, oh, that's too bad. If you're empathetic, I've been there, I've done that, I know how you feel. I feel your frustration, I feel your pain. And I, as a mentor, am here to save you from frustration and pain and get you through this as easy as possible. Fair winds and following seas, right? Enhance their skills, improving, coaching, counseling, listening, modeling, showing them how to do things. It gives me a little bit of pride sometimes when I have a meeting with FSOs or SOs and HR out here, and I have the opportunity to become a little bit better at coaching. And sometimes my style is, I'd like to take a 2x4 to their head. I don't do that. That's against Coast Guard rules. It's in the Aux manual, page 642. Cannot use a 2x4. But I have to learn how to do that. And so I can improve as a mentor. And I feel good when I come away that I've helped somebody. Is everybody going to get it? Does everybody? No. They won't. You can't take it personally. You have to try, do your best. And if you're not effective, remember we talked about that jihad, that ability to be together. If you're not becoming a good mentor to this person, look around. Maybe there's somebody else that can help them that might be better. We found, and this is, I don't want to get off into this whole male-female thing, but we found that some female auxiliarist recruits respond better to female auxiliarist mentors. And I think that's because they've been through something perhaps a little different than we have as old men in the organization. So maybe there's something that we can do that make it easier for that mentor and that mentee to get along. Okay? So we need to enhance our skill. Whoops, what did I do? Wrong button. Is leadership a static thing? I'm a leader. Don't put a little sign on me. Give me a little ribbon here. I'm a leader. Okay? Do you learn every day? Commodore? Every single day we're in this organization. And at every different level. We have levels for the member, the leadership levels for the member, then level 2, I guess, is for the flotilla, and then on up. So there's skills that we need, and in our leadership, practicing those skills as mentors is so important to us. And guess what? It's important to that mentee too. It's important that they understand what we're doing and how we're going through it, because if they don't understand the process, they're just going along with whatever we say and not looking at the end game, where the goalposts are. Demonstrate expertise and share knowledge. I don't think there's anybody in this organization that I have met that isn't interested in sharing their knowledge, to the extent that sometimes I go, okay, I'm overload. I've had enough. I'm up to here with knowledge. But we want to demonstrate the expertise. So that's what the member's going to get out of it. So if you're thinking about mentoring someone, think about those characteristics. Do you have them? Are you comfortable with them? Maybe there's something you need to improve in there. And then this is what you're going to get out of it. If you're not going to get this out of it, I don't think you're going to be a good mentor. Do you feel comfortable with this? You haven't said anything in a few minutes. Jump in. Yeah, I did. Do you feel comfortable with that? The guy you're going to mentor, the person you're going to mentor, the lady you're going to mentor, the new member you're going to mentor perhaps. What are they going to get out of this process? Excuse me? So is it going to relieve some of their frustration? So once again, we get back to that frustration relief. So I have a pressure relief valve. Frustration. Oh, so important. Yeah. What he said was, if you leave them alone, they're going to feel alone. And that's a fact. If you just say, here's a link to the website where you can find your application. Go get it, fill it out, and bring it back to us, or email it back to me. I have no relationship with this organization. The auxiliary doesn't mean anything to me yet. So the mentoring process can relieve some of that frustration. What did you say just before that? I lost my train of thought. Oh, darn. I had a really good story I could tell. Oh, well. Seriously, what were we talking about right before that? Pressure relief valve. Thank you, Roger. So, man calls up frantically. Oh, my God, this is terrible. The pressure on our boiler is going up continuously, and we can't stop it. It's about to explode. What are we going to do? We're going to call the boiler guy. So call the boiler guy. He comes over. He looks at it. He says, oh, you're in real trouble. Do you have a ball-peen hammer? And the guy says, yeah, I do. So give it to me. So he walks around. He looks, and he looks, and he looks. He goes, tap. Pressure goes down. The next day, they get a bill for $1,050. And this is ridiculous. You weren't here but 5 minutes, and all you did was tap on the machine. You billed us $1,050 for that? He said, no. The $50 was the fee for coming. The $1,000 was for knowing where to tap. Okay, so I talk to people, I said, knowing where to tap, your knowledge is valuable. Don't underestimate your value. So your ability to relieve that frustration is important. And you need to calm them down. So on those characteristics, the patience, you just say, okay, I know you're frustrated. I know this is a lot. Let's slow down. Sometimes you got to hold the horses back, right? You got to slow down. Let's go through this in a logical, progressive manner. You're going to relieve that frustration. You're going to turn that pressure relief valve low.
One of
Thank
the
you,
things
Commodore.
you get labeled a mentor, you go through training to mentor or whatever, but every time you go to a meeting, you're mentoring people. I went to the trainings at Caesars Creek on, January, February, March, and I didn't know many people there, but folks came up and talked to me, and I actually got to go to the boater safety course in person, because at one of those meetings, one of the folks said, hey, because I was kind of frustrated at the online training and this, that, and I'm okay with it, but I just wasn't doing well, and they're like, hey, we have a class like next week. So they were mentoring me without even knowing they were mentoring me. And I think that's important just to realize at all the meetings when there's new people, even when there's people that have been there a while, they still may, need information and stuff like that. So you're a mentor even if you don't know you're being a mentor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we get into this, I've been talking for 50 minutes, and y'all have been very patient sitting there. Let's take about a 10-minute break, if that's okay. Stephen, is that okay with you? Yep. So we'll get back. We're going to start back at 0900, and then we'll finish up. And I am so happy with your participation. Thank you so much. Whoop, whoop. Oh. that we have training questionnaires up here, and I'm going to go ahead and pass them out now. Well, no, I'm not. You're going to listen to me. You can fill them out later. Yeah, Roger will pass them out later. We're going to call him Gopher. Go for this. Go for that. We want to know what kind of training is useful here, and so write down whatever you think we can do to make it a better experience for you. So how might the auxiliaries benefit? We already talked about frustration. Uh-oh, turn it on. There we go. Smoother transition. Makes it easier for them to get in. If they don't have to go through this by themselves, if they have a mentor to kind of go with them, it's a smoother transition. Better acquainted flotilla members and leadership. This afternoon after lunch, I'm going to talk about the passport document, which is kind of a unique little thing that we have. And it makes them get out there and find out who's in charge of me. So the mentoring process can help you with that document, kind of figure out who's who in the organization. I went through, I guess, a couple of months, and they were talking about DSOs and SOs and ANCOs. And I go, I don't know who these people are. What do they do? How many FSOs are there in the world? Well, there are a lot of them. And so I need to figure out who they are. And more importantly, back in that radio station, what can that mean to me? What's in it for me to know who my public education FSO is? Why do I care? Identify some additional opportunities in the orientation process after we get through with this one. We're going to talk about going through and finding out what opportunities exist in the auxiliary, because that hot button that you got, and I'm going to, Lo, let me ask you this. When you came into the auxiliary, what did you want to do in the auxiliary? Okay. As do 90% of the people I talk to that want to join the auxiliary. Because you expanded your horizon, right? So as a mentor, one of the things that we can do best for these people is to expand their horizon. We got their hot button. We know what's going to make them want to go from here to here. But then we have to say, okay, there's a waypoint out here, but have you ever thought about telecommunications? Okay, you need a microphone. Sorry about that, but Stephen stays happy.
That's exactly what happened, because I thought I wanted to work on the water, and then I heard about TCO. And I've been on the radio my whole career, so that is exactly what I would be good at. And now that I know they need that, that's fantastic. And now that is where I want to go instead of where I thought I wanted to go.
Did you know that existed when you joined the auxiliary?
No, sir. Had no idea.
So you come in and there's this all of a sudden, hey, here's something else. I came in wanting to be an instructor because that's what I've done. I've done this for money for most of my life. And I thought, well, I'm going to be an instructor. Well, I did that, and then I looked around and I go, wow, you mean I can examine boats? I can get on that. I love the 65 Marquis. There's one in Florence. I said, you mean I can get on that boat and go through it from stem to stern and be a vessel examiner? How do I do that? So it expanded my horizons, and my mentors were amazing to me. There was a guy named Gary Aiken. I don't know if you remember Gary or not. Probably before your time. Gary and Sally Aiken that really kind of took me along and said, look, Tommy, don't just do this for us. What about this and this and this and this and this? So we're going to identify some additional opportunities for the people to consider. Change in perspective. So your perspective of the auxiliary, what did you think about the auxiliary? Don, when you came in, what was your concept of the auxiliary? Did you have...
So really, I didn't have a whole lot of ideas except that, well, we must be helping support the Coast Guard or we wouldn't have that name. And then the other thing was, I'd been on a water rescue team for 9 years, and I'm thinking, well, I wonder if they have something that might be similar to that. And then, because I always enjoyed that time. And then when I got in, then started to learn more about it, learn about, being on boat crew. I'm also paddle sports, so I'm going to develop over on that side. But then I'm seeing, well, we got FSOs and we're a small flotilla. We got some positions that one person has 3 or 4 jobs. I can help relieve some of that, help out on some of those areas too.
So your perspective might have changed
exactly.
So as a mentor, mentee, or a relationship, you can help them see the auxiliary in maybe a different way.
Right, help develop, figure out, well, what are their interests, what are their hobbies? How will that help fit in to our program?
Are you up with your hand up, or you just start stretching? Okay. Yep. Chief of Staff gets recognized when he stands up. That's just the rules. Get assistance with their ideas. The person coming in is going to say, look, I have an idea, and we don't just shoot it down. Well, we tried that back in 1922, and it didn't work, so we're never going to try that again. But some of these new auxiliaries coming in have got some pretty good ideas how to help the flotilla, and maybe send something up the leadership chain to say, why don't we do it this way? I was so impressed that I heard, yes, sir. I got something to say. Give him the mic.
I was on the railroad for years and years. And I first got on the railroad, you had all the old heads would not teach you anything. It says, nobody taught me, I had to learn it, you have to learn it. So I got the attitude right away, the rest of my career, I'm going to go out of the way to make sure I help other people to learn. And that's kind of, why I'm thinking this mentoring will be a good thing, because I don't care if I've heard the idea before 100 times, I'm still going to listen to their idea of how to do something better. And then if I don't use that idea, I'll explain, well, here's why. Yep. Or sometimes you're surprised and you've been doing something for 50 years the same way, and they come up with something and say, well, maybe that'll work. So that's how you grow as a company or organization.
If you shut them down right off the bat, that'll never work. Do you think they're going to come back to you with another idea? Maybe the greatest idea since, sliced bread was the thing they came up with. And now they're going to be hesitant to bring that idea to you. So as a mentor, the auxiliarist that's coming in might have these ideas. Listen to them. And if you can't, explain why. But I was so excited yesterday listening to them talking about how we're going to get to yes. You remember that? I don't remember who that was. I think it was the OTO that said, I may have to say no, but then I'm going to try to find a way to get to yes. Master Chief. So, oh my gosh, how wonderful is that we're in an organization that realizes through their leadership, this is not some low-level me talking, through the leadership, we're going to try to find a way to do something more effective, more efficient. Wasn't that the first slide that we put up there? Mentoring is an effective and efficient way, and we need to try to find a way to do that. And they're not the same. If you've got rats in your house, the most effective way to get rid of the rats is to burn the house down. Okay, but that's not the most efficient way to get rid of your rats. So there's a distinction between being effective and being efficient. And we need to find that combination of being both.
Master Chief's talk yesterday, that really changed some of the thought processes that I have, what he said yesterday. I've been long enough to hear what you described, not necessarily, it's not that they don't say we're not going to help you, but the implication is you should be able to do that. I had to do that. So I think we're moving away from that. And to hear someone, Master Chief's in a very senior position in the Coast Guard. From an auxiliary standpoint, he's probably in the second most senior position in the Coast Guard auxiliary, or for the gold side. To have him say, we're going to look for the yes, and if it's something we should do it, that's big. I mean, that's coming from the folks who are the well. So if you have an idea from what it says from the very top, they will listen.
And you go through, and I guess Chief of Staff Bono, you feel like they're listening? Are they paying attention to us?
Absolutely. I was just in attendance to the DTRAIN in St. Louis, and we had the Commandant of the Coast Guard was there. Several admirals were there. Master Chiefs, the hierarchy of the Coast Guard was there, and they are very much listening to us. They are supportive to us. There are challenges for us and for them, and we're all dealing with those challenges. But they truly recognize the value we add, and they truly are listening to us.
So it's not just lip service.
It is not lip service.
Sometimes they have to say no.
Yes, exactly.
I have been preaching for 15, 16 years now. If you've got an active duty military person coming in, my opinion is they need to be treated a little bit differently than some civilian that knows nothing. You know, you've done a couple of tours in Vietnam. You have a little bit more experience, and we need to recognize that and somehow put it together. And starting with Coast Guard active duty coming off, that's a big start for me. I mean, getting rid of some of these little things. You're a coxswain in the Coast Guard, and I don't think you probably need to go through initial boat through. You probably know your knots. You know, you probably know how to manage a crew. In the master's program for the Coast Guard, we go through how to manage the boat, but it's not Coast Guard coxswain training. It's something entirely different. So we can do that. So they're going to get assistance with their ideas. Listen to them, pay attention to them. They've got a lot to offer. Demonstrate their strengths and explore their potential. Potential. You know, that's a word that I really like because everybody has potential. You know, even someone that's as high up as chief of staff for the 8th District has potential. The sky's the limit. I once asked a guy, and I was a member of the JC's Junior Chamber for years and years, and I asked him, I said, well, you know, what do you want to do in this organization? How high do you want to go? He said, Tommy, if I tell you that, I'm limiting myself. I don't know how high. I don't know how high I can go. You know, he turned out to be the vice president of the country, so, you know, the JC's. So he really just wanted to fulfill his potential. And as mentors, we can help them do that. That's one of the things they're going to benefit. And we need to tell them this. We need to say, listen, as this relationship develops, you know, we're going to make it easier for you to transition in the auxiliary. We're going to let you get better acquainted with the people. So when you go to a flotilla meeting, you know who they are, what their positions are, and what they do in that position. And we're going to identify some opportunities where you might contribute. We're going to talk about TCO. You know, we're going to at least expose you to it. We're going to develop new perspectives. We're going to get assistance with any ideas that you might have. We can help you work through that process, and we're going to find out what your strengths and explore your potential.
It's unrealized what may happen. One of my favorite expressions is that I don't know, it was some leader in some industry, maybe it was a politician. He said, if I can see further than other people have, it's because I have stood on their shoulders. So that's kind of what mentorism is. Okay. You enable people to see further perhaps than you are because you started them at a higher place.
Exactly. Broaden their auxiliary network. Have you met any new people here? Have you said, oh my gosh, what they do? I mean, just yesterday you were introduced to all of these people coming through, and who was the Rear Admiral that was here? Timmy. Admiral Timmy was here. And so just to get the opportunity to say hi to them and to broaden your network. You know, I passed out my card to a guy that's a military emergency management master. That's the high level, biggie. And I thought, wow, I don't even know what you do, but I want to find out. So we'll get together. She might have been a general. Yeah. And finding out that they're kind of human people. I enjoyed Timmy yesterday. I've enjoyed just about everybody that's come through because they come through with the attitude of thank you and how can we help. And I really like that. I always go home enthusiastic. My wife, Fran, drives. We're 8 hours from home. So for 8 hours, I'm sitting there taking notes. Okay, I got to call this guy, and we're going to do this. And the mentoring program's got to be changed like this. So I'm making notes for 8 hours while she drives home. The enthusiasm I come away with is amazing. So, when should mentoring occur? When do you start this mentoring process? What do you think? All the time. You never know. Okay. When needed. Okay. When needed. When mentoring is needed, I'm sorry about that. Okay, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it's going to start when it's needed, when you're supposed to do it. So let me give you some ideas. We're going to start with the new applicant. New applicant needs mentoring, right? don't just send them the application. We talked about that before. We'll talk about it again. It's going to get boring. Don't just send the application. Mentor them. Go through, talk to them. That application is important because there's a set of questions on there you got to ask them. We're going to talk about those questions when we get through talking about this. What about a new qualification? I just passed the vessel exam course. Do I need mentoring? It's mandated because I have to have somebody go with me, watch me do it, and then by golly, they get the credit for all my work, which still ticks me off, but I live with it, you know. So I mentored somebody the other day. We were on his yacht. He was REWK. Went through the workshop, and I said, well, now you've got to go back and let's do some vessel exams. So we picked out a couple of boats, and we did those, and I was mentoring him. He's a captain, but he's not a master. But he's got his captain's license. So he understood a little bit. Well, we still went back through the process of helping him with his new to him qualification or requalification. And somebody has to identify that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So what else besides a new applicant and a new qualification? Anybody? Yeah. What's your position in the flotilla? Did you tell me? Vice flotilla commander. When you took that position, did anybody tell you how to do your job?
I took it grudgingly. Nobody else will take it.
Nobody else will take it, so I've got the job. If you've ever heard that before, raise your hand.
I asked for a recount. They wouldn't recount.
Would it have been helpful if you went in that position and had somebody to mentor you into how to be a vice flotilla commander? So any new position, like an FSO. Yeah. If you're going to accept something new in the organization level, a leadership position, have somebody walk that new person through. What about a new procedure? Do you think I needed mentoring? I was the FSOIS. Do you think I needed mentoring when they threw in this thing called AUX Data 2, which I think should be a 4-letter word? ADII or something? AUX Data 2. I cannot tell you how many new words I learned. I was in the Army, so I had to call some of my Navy and military friends and some of my Marine friends and said, look, I need some new words here, okay? So I learned Russian. So my wife didn't know what I was saying. So a new procedure, do you think mentoring is important? So I called Deanne Rodenberg and I said, I quit. I'm not doing this. And she said, now, Tommy, calm down. I said, no, I'm serious. I'm 75 years old. I'm not going to put up with this crap. I went on for I don't know how long. And she very patiently said, now, Tommy, okay, well, I'm still the FSOIS, and now I know a little bit more about what I'm doing, but I'm going to miss that thing this afternoon. So Duncan Wilkinson, he says, call me when you need help. So I got him on speed dial. Mentoring. Those are the 4 primary times we need mentoring. And then, again, anytime someone comes to you and says, I'm thinking about quitting. I think in the last year, 3 people have told me, I'm quitting. And I said, well, that's fine. I had a Marine major, as a matter of fact, said, I'm quitting. And we sat down and we talked about it, and we went through, and his issues were coming out of I'm in charge of the enterprise mentality to I'm now an FSO for whatever he was. He just couldn't make the transition. He said, just not for me. So, but we mentored. I mean, sometimes mentoring doesn't always come out to the conclusion that you want. Sometimes the best decision is, okay, well, that's whatever's good for you. But I worked him through that process, and I gained some understanding too. I kind of understood that some people who want to quit, there is no way to get them out of that mentality. But if you want to quit, let's at least talk about it. Yes, ma'am.
By helping him leave, that's not on, is it?
It's only for the YouTube feed.
Okay, sorry. By helping him leave with a positive spin, in the future, there may really be a time when he doesn't want to be in charge. And the Coast Guard Auxiliary may be perfect for him at that time, and he'll be more receptive to coming back because he left with a good attitude and with, positive vibes and that type of stuff. So just because he didn't stay doesn't mean he won't come back. because of the way you helped him go.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to do it. We always want to leave them with a good feeling about the auxiliary. However they go, we don't want to say, don't let the door, you know. We want them to have a good feeling about the auxiliary. Not necessarily me, not necessarily anything else. We want to feel good about the auxiliary.
Most people who leave the service after a career of 5, 6, 7 years probably have a service mentality, and when they come out, they will continue that service mentality. Now, for somebody who's a major, a colonel, general, admiral, whatever, there is definitely a transition in life becoming a civilian again, because people don't bring them coffee in the morning, people don't do all these things that used to happen to them, and people don't hang on every word they say. So that takes a while. So once that has passed, the service mentality is still going to be there because that's embedded. So they may come, like you said, they may come back.
Yeah, they may. I showed you this book. Every page on there is an individual that I've tried to contact or has contacted us about the auxiliary. Probably 20 of those are re-enrollment people. And I ask them, why do you want to re-enroll? I didn't get a good feeling with my other flotilla. I've moved now to Missouri. I want to see if I can try it again. So many times there are reasons that they just didn't fit. Time was a problem. Health was a problem. I had too many kids, and now my kids are gone. I want to come back in. So it's an opportunity for me to mentor them, or an opportunity for somebody to mentor them again, and that's when it should happen. Where? Where and how? Where and how should mentoring take place? I'm gonna write this down. Okay. Hope I got enough paper here. So how and why? Where and how?
So I actually added a hotspot onto my phone so that I can travel to wherever the member's at and get online to show them the aux data, Google, Moodle, whatever they need to get into. So that helps me keep mobile
So that would be online, right?
online.
That's
But I-
one way of getting it done. Okay, you're looking at a screen on your phone. He's looking at, or she's looking at a screen on their phone, and you're saying, okay, go here, look here, did that.
Well, I actually travel to wherever they're at,
Okay.
and I have the hotspot so we have access to the internet
Oh,
for
okay.
both of us. So I walk them through, as I'm going through the steps on my computer, they're going through the steps. But I also capture the screen cap. I can do a screen capture so I can send it to them afterwards, the steps that we went through, so they can go back and just look at it. And then if they need any additional help, I can go and travel with them again and go through the process again.
That's a good process. What other ways could we mentor people?
I like his, though.
I do. So part of his that I picked up online because sometimes, as Stephen mentioned, our geographical area is unbelievable. It's half of the division. So I'm not able to travel sometimes, and I'm mentoring people. I can do it online. Or what about person to person? Is that good? Okay.
So yeah, when I first got into Flotilla, I'd found it on my own. I found the application, so I printed it out, and I'm putting all this stuff in. I got all these blank places. So I wonder what this is. I wonder what that is. But my flotilla commander, before he even knew what I had, he says, well, one of the first processes we're going to do is the application. And I said, I want to meet you. So we met at a coffee shop. Of course, I brought what I'd already had, and it made it a lot easier for us. But, he did that one-on-one where he brought me in and sat down and said, well, let's go over this and get this thing going. So I think that's huge, is to meet the person, face-to-face and work them through any anxieties or any questions or concerns they have.
Coffee shop.
At a coffee shop, yeah.
You met at their house?
Sometimes they come to my house because I have it set up with monitors already, like a home office, and I've taken through the classes sometimes, or I'll travel. With Joe, I travel like an hour and a half down to Dayton to go through aux data with her and some different things. Well, Low, we met Joe,
There's a Joe and a Low. Oh, no conflict there. After a couple of bourbons, be like, woo.
we actually met at a division meeting.
just came in.
classes and qualifications and just listening, but, and they're not even in our facility, but we still travel down to help them, or they travel with us to get additional training.
So do you mentor people that are not in your flotilla, not your responsibility? We took a guy came down from Pittsburgh, and he happened to be TDY down at Huntsville, and wanted to do some vessel exam training. So one of our VEs went over there and said, we can qualify you, and they took him out, and they did the whole process here, and he took all that information back to Pittsburgh. Do you think we were upset about that? No, not at all, not at all. We'll do it wherever and whenever we can.
Very important too. You want to address the problems as they occur and when they're in the forefront of everybody's mind. So if you put it off 2 weeks, it doesn't work, or put it off a week, it doesn't work. So the sooner the better in communicating, and plus that shows the person who is being mentored that they're a priority and important, and that might be the bigger message.
Well, I've trained 4 children, and I don't know how many dogs, and if my dog makes a mess in the kitchen, I don't wait till next week to you know, it's immediate reward, immediate punishment. So let them know what's going on. But, you know, address their issues now. Because, number one, I'm old. I'll forget it. I mean, I forgot things in here already. So I want to deal with it right here and right now. And they are important. You're important for me to listen to, and you're important for me to do what you want to do when you want to do it. I may have to change your mind. I may have to say, can you wait until next week when we've got a qualified vessel examiner coming in or something like that? Comfortable location, my opinion. I think I have been in, I was on a park bench one time, and I was the most uncomfortable thing. That park bench was rocking, and I said, why don't we go someplace else? We didn't, because the new applicant was comfortable there. You know, they were familiar with the area, and they were there, and they picked the spot. I said, okay. So we're sitting on this park picnic table, and flotilla commander and I were going through the process with him. First question out of his mouth is, are we going to be able to carry guns? No. No guns. Oh, man, he was a reserve officer, and, you know, well, I'm a reserve. I said, no. I don't care who you are, you know, uniform, no guns. Yeah, I don't know how that worked out, but we'll see. In person, we like that. If you have the opportunity, because I read body language. You know, I kind of feel how things are going and what's happening, and so I can judge a little bit more in person. And there's no communication lag. You know, you send a text and you wait and you wait and you wait and you get a text back, or you send an email and you wait and you wait and you wait. In person, it's like, hey, Roger, what do you think? Instant feedback. Instant feedback. Virtual, online, and you get online, but you're person to person. Sometimes I have to walk them through it. Hopefully the internet's up, or we do a Zoom meeting or something, and we work through that. And it's very, very hard for me to use that. I came along way before that whole thing. I still don't do Snapchat. My granddaughters do. I don't know how it works. But I can try to use that virtual opportunity. Since COVID, I have learned Zoom. I use Zoom for everything. It's amazing. And YouTube, I mean, we have this opportunity now to not only broadcast this to people who can't afford to come or can't have the time to come, but we can also capture it for somebody that might find it useful later on. So those things, those virtual opportunities to mentor people, and we're doing that. We're mentoring people live. We're mentoring people through the YouTube that's going to be kept. So we're doing that. So where and how should this take place depends on what? What are the factors that depend how you do this in person or virtual? The mentor. Where am I? I have 2 mentors. I've had 8 Western that were handicapped. They were in wheelchairs. They didn't essentially leave their house except to go to church and maybe 1 or 2 things when they go out, but they were basically homebound. But they were great mentors in TCO. And so it depends on the mentor. It depends on the mentee. Is that a word? I made it up. Mentee. The person being mentored. What do they want? Do they want to meet in person? Can they meet in person? I have a lot of people that work at night, and so it's not convenient. They sleep during the day, and then they work at night, and finding a comfortable time is sometimes difficult. So it depends on what their needs are. Some people are extremely comfortable at getting things done via online internet. They're good at it. They can push all the buttons and make everything work, and so they feel comfortable doing that. So we can work with the new vessel examiner doing it that way, or work with the new staff officer doing it that way. So it depends on what the mentee wants to do. And then again, it depends on the subject matter. You know, if you're just talking about core training, is there any particular reason that you can think of that I would have to sit down next to Mr. Miller and go through core training with him? Have you been through core training? I can look it up. I can't lie. I can look it up. The old stuff. When? Yeah. So, yeah. Auxiliarist, or before he?
He just joined, lost everything. So he would come down to the station on the weekend. We'd actually go bring our computer and let him go through.
So the opportunity says, I need to use somebody else's facilities, because I have two people who don't have computers. We go to the library. Not my favorite thing to do, but you know, sometimes it has to be done. So it depends on the subject matter that you're taking. So you do core training and BQC. You can do that in what we call a static learning process. If they have a problem, pick up the phone and call me. Other than when I'm in class or something else, I answer the phone 24/7. I even answer those spam calls, because you never know. I may need a automobile extension on my warranty or something. You never know. Catch me at the right time, we'll find out. And what materials are needed? You know, can you look at something online as opposed to in person? And will that work out? Can you make that work? And so it begins. The mentoring starts. How does it get started? How do you just say, okay, I'm going to go out today and I'm going to mentor, right? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Who initiates the mentoring process? Who's going to start the ball rolling? Who's the quarterback? Or there are multiple people that are going to handle the ball? Who assigns the mentors? You think about that? Did somebody assign you to the mentoring that you're going to do? You just decided that you assigned yourself, right? I assign myself to duty on a regular basis. And how do we track it? The majority of the tracking is going to be done when we talk about Passport after lunch, if y'all are still with me back then. So I think mentoring should be an automatic process. As soon as the event occurs, as soon as your applicant says, I'm interested in the auxiliary, as soon as a new process is initiated, as soon as someone gets another position, as soon as another qualification is interested, as soon as one of those little pop-ups come, I need a mentor for this event, okay? As soon as the event, the new applicant, would you think the FSOHR would be the one to assign a mentor for a new applicant? Does it have to be the FSOHR? So here's a question. It's not a loaded question. Does it have to be somebody? Somebody to assign the mentor? I love it when somebody says no.
I don't know how the tracking goes, but if I know Roger is a great weather guy, and I happen to have met him at a training at one point, and I call him and ask questions, and he helps me through it or whatever, he's being a mentor. He's never been assigned by anybody. He's not in my flotilla.
You just ask him.
I just asked him a question, yes.
You assigned him to be your mentor. Can I put it that way?
Sure.
Okay.
In that particular aspect.
Right.
But then Don is a wonderful TCO, and I also am interested in TCO. I'm not good at either of them yet, so I call Don and I say, hey, can you help me with this? And Don helps me. Then Don is also my mentor. And then I call Mike and ask him, about uniform stuff, and he helps me. So everybody's my mentor.
I think
Well, let me make one comment before you do that. Lo, I appreciate that, because that doesn't happen in many cases. I don't get a lot of auxiliaries that come in and say, I want to learn this, I'm going to find my own mentor. If somebody doesn't approach them pretty quickly, the experience I've had is they just kind of shut down. So it's critical. Yes, sir.
The newer you are in the process, the more there is a need for formality. The new applicant doesn't know.
Formality would be the automatic process?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, the new applicant doesn't know who to go to or even what TCO is. So in my mind, I don't care if it's FSOHR, just as long as it's somebody, will assign somebody to do the new applicant navigation or trail guide, so they can get to the point where they know who does what and know what FSO does what and all that kind of stuff to ask the questions Lo just talked about.
Actually, I would agree with that because I'm kind of an anomaly. I'll talk to everybody about anything. I don't even care. So, but there's a lot of people who will not. So that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
So, and that goes back to knowing the applicant, knowing the person who's going up, knowing the mentee, and finding out how you can approach them. How was the process? Roger?
So I informally started mentoring the newer members, and we had another member that came on that was also informally mentoring people. And we realized that we were cross-mentoring the same people. So our flotilla commander didn't realize that we were doing this mentoring behind the scenes. And then he said, "Hey, Roger, why don't you mentor this gentleman?" I said, "Well, Chris is already mentoring him." And then we realized we had to formalize the process and make sure that now I have a list of the people I'm mentoring. Chris has a list of the people they're mentoring.
And you're keeping track of it that way.
We are, and then we also have succession planning because we have another gentleman that just came on. I think he would be an awesome mentor because he's really good at the static learning approach. You just point him in the right direction and he just picks it up. Like
we've got a guy in our division that does that. You
Yeah.
just turn him loose with a computer,
Yeah.
and he'll go through everything, and then when he needs a hands-on, in person,
Yeah.
he'll call and say, "Okay, I need some help here."
So I think
But-
you need to
but they're
have a formal.
self-motivated.
I think you need to have a formal setup.
It is,
for
it is, and it's an automatic process that's formal. Somebody needs to get that new applicant a mentor. And maybe it might be the new applicant who says, "You're my mentor." If it's a new qualification, maybe the staff officer of vessel exams should be the one to appoint a mentor for a person who says, "I want to be a vessel examiner," or for TCO, because you need some specialty in that area, and not everybody has specialty. A new position, flotilla vice commander, maybe you would be the one that would say, you've taken on a new staff officer position, a new FSO of public education. I'm going to assign this person to help you. Does it have to be somebody out of your flotilla? Can you go to the division and use their? I all the time do. I said, "Look, I've got somebody here that's out of my ballpark. What can you do to help me mentor this person in this particular new position?" And then a new process. I mentioned the OX data, that 4-letter acronym that AD22. So a staff officer in that area can go out and find somebody. We're just talking about who's assigning it. We're not talking about who's going to be the mentor. We're just saying who should assign the mentor. Okay? You're talking about keeping track of it. This is what I would use to keep track of the people that are being mentored. It's probably a little small for you to see, but over here I've got the member's name, Mr. John Smith, wanted to be a vessel examiner. All right, Terry was the mentor that we assigned. We started on March the 23rd. We finished a couple of months later, and we should be 100% complete here, but not yet. Okay. Yes, when they have done this is the PQS. When are they done? Okay, and then so I may have a different mentor, one mentor to help them get through the written part of it. It's in the. I'm gonna send you the slides if you want it. It's in, so it's part of it may be helping them get through the process of logging on to the vessel exam, going through the qualification process, and then I may have another mentor who helps them actually do their exams, because there may not be the same people. The people who help them get through the exams I've got 2 of them. They're busy, and they can't sit down and mentor somebody through the vessel exam process. They don't have the time, but they can sit down and go through the boats with them. Any questions about that? Okay. So can a well-established and well-maintained mentoring program improve your flotilla, your division, your district? Have I sold you on that yet? You knew that when you came in here though, right? Because you walked through that door thinking, this is something I want to be able to take back. I want to become better at it. I want to have a format, a way to go through. There is a mentoring guide, and I don't have the link to it here. But if you go to the T directory and you look at level 1 training and you go down to mentoring guide, there is a mentoring guide that is put out. These are my ideas. These are basic ideas. There's so much more to mentoring that we can do, but I think what we tried to do here is to capture the basics. Did we do that? I hope you've got a feeling now that you're a little bit more comfortable with this mentoring process, and more importantly, maybe you're comfortable taking this back to your flotilla, your division, and working through this mentoring process with other people. Because there are only 4 or 5 of us that have been here. I wish we could have had the whole crowd here. There's so many people that need to go through this. Now, how are you going to use the information? Anything in here going to change your modus operandi?
I really like that tracking sheet you had at the end. So I'm not as structured as that, but I like the layout, so I'll try to use that.
If something happened to Roger, I'm not trying to kill you off or anything, but if you moved to Seattle, is there anybody else that can know where you are in this process without some kind of formal tracking?
The other mentor, Bill and Chris, he and I talk a lot back and forth where everyone is.
Oh, I like redundancy.
Yeah, and if there's an area that I'm maybe a little bit stronger in, I'll work with that person with that. So Chris is really good at PCO. I'm more the operations side.
Lo, what are you going to do with this stuff? Did you learn anything here you can take back? Who would you ask? Okay. Is it important to have a formalized mentoring program? Should you have? Yeah. So some level of formality of getting this going, and who's going to assign it, and how are you going to track it, and what are you going to mentor, and what areas do you need to say, hey, we need a mentor. That new position, that new process, that new applicant, that way to get the process going. Okay? So, any questions? I have one. Can I get your, John Hancock, I want your, let's see, what is this? Mentorship. There we go. Name, your member number, and your flotilla, please. Lynn Miles, my boss. What's up, boss lady? Oh, right here. I got some takers.
How many of y'all need? I do hard update.
Oh my God. Lynn. It's gone. I'm dead serious. But it's never gone. It's always with me. Ah.
Yours is like mine. Use the material. Okay, we're gonna go. So we're gonna be doing this.
Okay. Are you going to announce it? Okay. Oh. Yes. Pardon us just a second. We're talk amongst yourselves. She did do the forms for me. What the hell did I do with it? Oh, Lynn. Kelly printed off a whole bunch of them for me yesterday. And, No, she brought them to me. And I promptly lost them somewhere. I'm sure they're in a. Tell them we ran out or something. I did. She printed off a dozen for me, and they're up in the room. Okay, I'm sorry. Comments, suggestions? Somehow, if you would get to me your information, that's me, I will be glad to send you this PowerPoint presentation for whatever value you can use it. It's in PowerPoint. It's editable. Make it customized to you. Do whatever you want. When are you going to do the questionnaires, Lynn? Now? There's a drawing. If you hand this back into the admin office or somewhere, there's going to be a drawing at 4 o'clock. Do you know that? Ma'am? If they want to fill them out and give them to you, or they can leave them. And I don't know how many people. Anybody coming back for the next round? If what? Change the name. It doesn't have your name. Yeah. Oh, it does at the bottom. If you want, Lo. Have you filled one out?
I've got my own master, but yeah, let me have one.
Huh? I don't know who she handed them out to. She just put this on my table. So I probably have more than, let me keep a few. I don't know, dear. I'm not in charge of this. It's above my pay grade. And since my pay is 0, everything is above my pay grade. All right. I'm tired of talking. You're tired of sitting. So